Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 horror film Stay Out of the Attic. And I'm not going to say that word because I don't swear on this channel, not generally anyway. The film is directed by Jaron Lauder, and it stars Ryan Francis, Morgan Alexandria, Bryce Fernelius, I hope I've got that right, and Michael Flynn. Now this film, despite its goofy title really, is actually quite a surprisingly fun film, this one. And it focuses on a character called Albert, played by Ryan Francis, who runs his own moving company called Second Chance. And basically what that means is he's an ex-con himself, and he only employs ex-cons, hence the name Second Chance. He's giving them a second chance. So these three people, Ryan and his two employees, rock up at this old-fashioned house that is moving. They knock on the door, they're allowed in, and they are asked by the owner to start packing things up. But it makes it very clear, don't go down the cellar and stay out of the attic. So they do that. They realise the job's actually much bigger than they expected, and the owner of the house basically offers them a lot more money to do an all-nighter and stay there all night and pack things up, because he needs to be out by the morning. They agree, but they end up wishing they hadn't, because the house is owned and run by a bit of a crazed ex-Nazi who has a bit of a thing for human experimentation, so they soon start regretting their decision. Right, what are my thoughts on Stay Out of the Attic? Well, like I said, apart from the goofy title, it's actually quite a fun film, this. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was quite actually nicely put together here. What we get is a pretty good introduction to these three characters, so we get an understanding of who they are and what they do and why, why he hires ex-cons, things like that. So you get a little bit of a backstory for each of these characters, and I liked that. A lot of horror films, they just put you straight into the horror sometimes with these faceless, nameless characters that you don't care about. You can't even remember the name most of the time, so you don't really feel anything for them when the terror starts. This film cleverly gives you a little bit of backstory for each of them. It's not a lot, it doesn't need to be a lot, and I've said that a few times in movies. It doesn't need to be heavy exposition for characters or heavy dialogue scenes for us to get to know them. The scene I'm talking about is just like a 5-minute scene really, where they're all having lunch around the truck while they're packing up the building, the house, and they're all talking about the families, why they do what they do, tattoos, you name it. So you get to know a little bit more about each of them, and that really helped the film because you felt more connected to these characters. It was a clever move and it worked. And fairly soon into the night, when things start going sideways, you kind of think it's going to go down that generic route, and it does to some degree. But where this film works is it kind of leans quite heavily on body horror. You've got scenes with needles going into eyes and experimentation on bodies, Siamese twins and all this kind of stuff, and it all gets a bit freaky and a bit gory at times, and in a wonderful way really, you know what I mean. It does make you wince more than once, this film, and I appreciated that. You get the usual mutationist things charging about the house and all the things you would kind of expect from a crazed Nazi human experimenter, I suppose. It doesn't disappoint on that front for the most part, and you definitely feel the threat for all the characters in this film, and I thought all the performances here were on point. Initially, early on, it kind of felt really low budget, and then it settled into itself almost, and the characters and the actors The performances improve, I guess that's the best way to say it. And then when it gets into its stride, the film, and it takes off, and the horror side of it starts taking off. You're really, really invested in the film. So I've got to say, I quite enjoyed this film. It's one of those that you'll either take it or leave it. It tries to take that step over the mark in the sense of its brutality. It's not quite in the Hostel territory, the film Hostel and others like that. But it's treading lightly in that area. But it never really goes full on body horror or whatever you want to call it. But it certainly treads in that territory, and definitely it had me certainly tense and scared occasionally, in a good fun way. It never crossed the line of being too grotesque. I was worried at one point. I thought it was going down the route of Human Centipede a little bit, and I was a bit like, I'm out at this stage. And if you don't know, Human Centipede just repulses me in every way, that film. But it didn't tread very heavily in that area at all, thankfully. But yeah, this a surprise. It's one of those films you put on. I wasn't expecting to think anything much of this film. The title is what drew me in, as it probably would many people. But it's actually a pretty nicely done film. Pretty effective, certainly watchable. Yeah, it ain't going to be nobody's movie of the year or anything like that, but definitely you could do better. It's only like 70 minutes long, something like that. 80 minutes long. It's not that long, let's put it that way. So it's quite an easy film to sit through and watch if you're a horror fan. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Definitely worth checking out if this is your sort of horror film. That is my review for Stay Out of the Attic. I'll see you next time for more reviews on Screen Stars.